Chiefs Kingdom, welcome into the latest episode of the AP Draft Room podcast on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. I am Ron Kopp Jr., lead analyst at the site. As always, I'm joined by Caleb James at CJ Scoobs tonight. But we got a special guest too. Last week it was Nate Christensen. Got another great writer from the site for us. My guy Maurice Elston on the show at Reese Nichols on Twitter. Got the fellas here today. I'll start with Caleb though. I'll start with Caleb because I don't know. We're all just kind of sitting here, just like getting ready for the podcast, and all of a sudden we get some breaking news, right?
I'm sitting around watching a little bit of film here, and start seeing the phone buzzing. Go over, scroll Twitter a little bit, and you go, the Chiefs just re-signed Drue Tranquill. So that was pretty cool. It's about 30 minutes before the show. Chiefs get one of their key contributors back. We got a 3-year, $19 million deal with, I believe it was 16 guaranteed, 13 guaranteed. So honestly, they found, a good price for the team and the player, and they got, they're getting one of their guys back now.
Maurice, you just picked the perfect podcast. I mean, there's not many episodes that are lucky enough to, get the timing perfectly on a signing, instead of, recording right before it happens. How you feeling about Drue Tranquill coming back?
Hey, man, I was the good luck charm. They knew I was about to come on,
yes,
so they had to do it. Excuse me. I love the signing. I do. I got a notification first. It's like Chiefs are optimistic, kind of like that. And then like 15 minutes later, it's like Chiefs signed them. I'm like, okay, somebody has some insider info. Well, I love the signing. The way he was able to fill in last year for Nick Bolton, and normally when you lose your starting middle linebacker, your defense takes a big stump. So it's like to lose Bolton, keep him in, bring Tranquill in the defense, not fall back, for him to be new and be able to wear the green dot.
Right.
It's like crazy. I think it showed how highly football intelligent he is. So to be able to bring somebody back like that, unfortunately, it probably means the end for Willie Gay, which I'm a big Willie Gay fan. So that was the only down part of the signing for me.
Yeah, that's a key point. I think you're right. I think, there's no reason to sign, it makes no sense to bring back Willie at this point. You had to only bring back one of them, I imagine. And Drue is just, you mentioned the Mike linebacker versatility, the green dot. But man, even him being able to play that will position next to Bolton at times, mix, even him and Chenal on the field together at times, depending on, a pass down package more. Man, I don't know. And that's the thing is, Caleb, I'm curious what you think here. I think you might agree with me, but like, I just kind of thought they wouldn't be able to bring him back just because, another team would be like, wait, we let this guy sign for, just a cheap 1-year deal last year. Like, this guy's an awesome middle linebacker. Let's make him our guy. Like, I'm surprised no team made him a better offer. What do you think?
I am too, and he's real productive. 79 tackles, 4.5 sacks, real good pass coverage in some big spots versus good tight ends. And I was kind of like the feeling, I'm like, man, we might be getting ready to lose Willie Gay and Drue Tranquill both this offseason. But they found this common ground with Tranquill, and like Reese was talking about here a minute ago, they're so big in what he does for the defense because he can play the Mike backer, he can play the Will side backer, he can go cover these tight ends, but they could use him as a blitzing threat. He's extremely versatile. I mean, if he'd hit the free agent market, I bet he would have had some suitors somewhere for a team that needs a linebacker like that. But basically, what I think having him back does is they just continue to have that depth. They don't really have to mess around with linebacker anymore this offseason. And honestly, they put themselves in a position where he could maybe end up being the middle linebacker of the future if things don't work out with Nick Bolton here this next offseason.
Yes, that's a great, I think, step forward in this conversation about the signing because, what does this mean about Nick Bolton? And I should say, I should correct myself because you just mentioned it there. He didn't get the free agency, so he doesn't know what other teams were offering him. He signed this deal kind of blindly. I mean, obviously, I'm sure some agents were giving him a feel for what was out there, but, technically he was not able to go talk with any teams. And so this does kind of just show you he wanted to be here and he just needed a decent sized deal. But that's the thing. It's 3 years. Nick Bolton is entering the final year of his contract going into 2024. Kind of someone that maybe, at times the last few years, we've just assumed he would be extended, as the future middle linebacker, this offseason. But it'd be pretty, I don't know. I just couldn't see that happening. Right, Maurice? Like, I feel like you kind of make this deal kind of maybe just giving Bolton a prove it year, right? Like, this is your contract year. Like, we got a guy signed. Like, you really got to prove it to us that we should sign you too. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's kind of and it's crazy to say, but I do think that's kind of the move. Because I mean, if you'd have asked me last offseason, was there any chance that Nick Bolton doesn't get an extension, I'd have told you was crazy to
Right.
even have that thought. But
even if I my feelings on it, like I just figured the Chiefs would do it,
Right. And that's kind of the same feeling I'm having. But now when you see if it would have been just like a 1 year or 2 year deal with Tranquill, then it's probably like, Nick Bolton is probably getting an extension. But for that third year to be added on here with that type of guarantee, they're planning for him to be here. So I think that it's gonna be kind of a prove a year. Prove you can stay healthy, prove that you can improve all of that, and then makes him have to be if he doesn't want to come in at a team friendly number for them to keep him, the Chiefs don't have to overextend themselves.
No, I think the Chiefs are putting themselves in good position because what if he does just have an awesome season and he does give you reason, where it still probably would not make a lot of sense to sign 2 linebackers to multi-year deals, but hey, the motivation for this year specifically, from this isn't going to hurt. I don't know. Is there anything else on this, Caleb? You think just from the defensive perspective, it's one of the 3 pieces we've talked about, so far on this podcast that were really important to get back. So I don't know, now that he's back, like, is it possible to see the other 2 backers that really feel like, with this deal done, it's probably just going to be one of the, Snead or Jones, right?
I mean, I've always kind of felt from the start it was going to be either Snead or Jones. Having Tranquill backs, obviously, like that nice sprinkle on top of whoever, but I still kind of feel the same way. I don't see both of them being back unless something major happens, just because I still think that they have a couple of other positions they might want to address. And I still think that even though they do want to be aggressive going into like this possible 3-peat season coming up, they're still going to remain smart with how they manage the cap.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. There's definitely more moves to come. And that's what this show's about today, is about previewing the free agency because, you're listening to this on Friday morning or the weekend. Hey, when Monday hits, guys, it's full go. It is going to be, you're going to get all the reports on what contracts are being signed, who's signing where. You might get the Chris Jones news right out the gate. You might get the L'Jarius Snead trade any minute. So, we got to be on our game. We got to be ready to roll. And so, the legal tampering window opens on Monday. The league year actually starts on Wednesday. So none of the signings become official till Wednesday. So always be wary of that. There's always those reports you get that, on Monday where they don't actually come true. It doesn't happen a lot, but I think it was like Frank Gore to the Eagles was like one of them. It was, so be careful, guys. Be careful, everybody. But I don't know. By our next episode, we might have a completely different team. And so let's get into it. Let's talk about free agency. And I feel like, it's only best that we let our guest kind of lead us here, Caleb. Let Maurice take the first swing because what I kind of want to do, guys, is let's just talk through how you want to attack free agency at a specific position. We know, there's going to be wide receiver. The wide receiver position is going to get attacked. Defensive tackle, defensive end, might need to be looked at. Maybe not linebacker anymore, but there's other ones. Running back, obviously, maybe. So, let's just go one position at a time. Each of us get to pick it, and just kind of give us your thoughts on how to attack it. So, Maurice, you got a position in mind you want to kick it off with?
I mean, you kind of named it when you started, man. If I'm kicking off free agency and I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I am going to attack the wide receiver position. Yes. I think you let MVS go, which is definitely a cap move that had to happen. And even if it wasn't a cap move, he probably was going to be out of here based off his performance alone last season, despite some playoff heroics, right? But wide receiver position, I think that's where the Chiefs will have to start. I think Tampa not allowing Mike Evans to hit free agency probably put a little different swing in their plans. But I would not be mad at a push for Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley would do great in this offense. I think he can be still a number one threat. I think him and Trevor Lawrence just really never found that groove. He can find it with Pat because Pat's Pat, right? So I will go after him. The next couple tier people after that, I'm not a huge fan of. I wouldn't mind if it had to go to a lower tier receiver being Mooney from Chicago.
Okay.
I would love this. I mean, deep threat, he knows how to get open. He kind of inconsistent sometimes with his ball tracking skills, but I think he's a step above what we had in MVS.
Yeah, and that's the thing with me in this free agency period is I'm with you on Calvin Ridley. I'm a big Calvin Ridley guy, but once you get past like him and I will say I think I'm big on Marquise Brown too in terms of the number he might get signed to. I do think he would fit in the Chiefs offense and he would be an explosive player, but after that, man, I am completely out on signing any of these dudes to multi-year deals.
Right.
I think Mooney, there is something there, but if he's getting an MVS type contract, the contract we just paid MVS, I don't want to do that. I think that's just the same mistake all over again, and that's why like a guy like Gabe Davis, completely out on. I think he's MVS all over again. Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, like I'm just not doing it with this middle class of free agency at receiver. I really think it's either Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, or you're going for a bargain bin guy. And again, like a guy like Mooney might be cheaper than I think. And that'd be nice, but because I do think he fits a certain skill set. But Caleb, how are you feeling about the receiver position? Like, are you willing to invest in it pretty heavily in the free agency?
I wouldn't say heavily.
Okay.
Just kind of echoing some of your guys' points. I think if you could make it work with some guys like Ridley and Brown and Mooney, go for it, but don't do what you just did with MVS. As far as like bargain bins go, or like a cheaper deal, like a prove it deal, like the Veach special, I'd maybe look at DJ Chark. I think he basically just signed a prove it deal this season, but they had a lot of issues in their offense down there. So I honestly wouldn't be shocked to see maybe the Chiefs give him another chance, because he was a 1,000-yard receiver at one point in his career. And, just looking at the roster, it's thin. They're going to be looking to get experience where they can. I don't think he would be like some, backbreaking to the cap guy to sign or bring in.
Yeah, no, I like that one. Another guy that feels like a bargain bin in the same kind of category where, he's had some productive seasons in the past, but, it's been quiet, especially last year. Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's got that big build. He's athletic for his size. He's a deep threat. He had 800 yards for the Browns a couple of years ago. And then last year got traded midseason to Detroit and just obviously wasn't able to crack the lineup. Detroit was contending. So that's another one to me, bargain bin. Is there any, Maurice, you got any bargain bin guys besides
I don't know how bargain bin he would be, and he's been crazy injured since he's been a superstar. But with the Saints talking of the releasing of Michael Thomas, he played 10 games last year on a 1 year, maybe prove it type deal. That was definitely incentive laden, where he had to hit a lot of incentives to get the bigger money. I would go for it with a Michael Thomas.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That is one. Yeah, he could hit the free agency market late. So yeah, no, I like that call. And yeah, he would be a 1 year prove it. There's no way he can demand anything. the man hasn't played a full season and who knows how long. So the only thing, I really, on this receiver group, I really just want to emphasize that I really feel like, it's Calvin Ridley, Marquise Hollywood Brown or bust. And that's the thing. Like, you touched on it a little bit, Maurice, like Calvin Ridley, I really feel like is becoming underrated in terms of what he's going to get paid, maybe, and that's the thing. I could be wrong. Maybe him being at the top of the market now without Mike Evans, maybe he does get paid like a 20, 22, 23, something like that. That would be a lot for him. Right. But if he does sit in that 17 range per year, this is the guy, because you mentioned it with Trevor Lawrence. Like Trevor Lawrence, I thought was going to take a much bigger step last year, and I really think he didn't, and that hindered Calvin Ridley a little bit. I think Calvin Ridley had some rust to him too. Obviously he didn't play the year before with the gambling suspension, but I really think you saw him excel as a deep threat, but you did not see him win really over the middle of the field. And I know he can do that. I don't know. I feel like he's a good enough route runner. He's a strong enough, player. So yeah, I think we could definitely utilize him more than Jacksonville did. I kind of feel the same way about Hollywood Brown too. And that's a Brett Veach special. Hollywood Brown. He's a former first-round pick, someone that's underutilized. So I don't know. Am I just being like too stubborn about this, guys? Like if they sign a multi-year deal for Curtis Samuel? Like, is it the end of the world? Like, what do you guys think?
I wouldn't really be the biggest fan of that. If they're going to go for like a multi-year deal, I mean, this free agency class feels fine, but I feel like they'd be better off doing like a, sign or trade for someone than do an extension right after if they're really interested in like getting an A-tier type receiver. And I mean, with what they have with Kelsey and Rice this year, they're not going to really need like an A-tier receiver in free agency if they think they can get one in the draft. But it would be fun to have if they want to go back to like the 2018 style of offense.
I know, right? It would be. Hey, Xavier Worthy at the bottom of the first round, Calvin Ridley. I think you'd be getting there. I think you'd be getting close. So yeah, I think the receiver position in general, I think I am cool with them if they do sit out and attack it in the draft. But that's the thing, they have to attack it in the draft. Be aggressive on day one. Go up and get your guy. And so, yeah, I guess real quick, we've talked about the receiver class so much, Caleb and I. Maurice, is there anyone you want to give some receiver draft takes real quick? Any day one guys that you're favoring so far that you've seen?
I mean, I honestly, because I don't think the Chiefs was going to like take up and go get a guy. Honestly, I kind of been looking away from it when I was looking at draft stuff. I'm like, there's no way that the Chiefs would go up and get it. I had them kind of looking around in the second round. I was thinking like out of South Carolina, Xavier Leggett was kind of where I was leaning, thinking that, I mean, he could move up a little bit, but with his speed. But that's kind of where I was kind of back, if they was going to get it, somebody back in first round or move up in the second. I was looking around the Xavier Leggett, thinking somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's the thing. This receiver class, I feel like by the time we get to draft day, it's going to be so pushed up. That a guy like, he might be, someone you have to consider, top of day 2 or with your 32nd pick with all the guys, being drafted probably so early. So yeah, the receiver position, absolutely the most, the most exciting, the most intriguing position on the Chiefs in this free agency, in my opinion, just because they could make those splash moves. But I also, I do think, if they do make in my opinion, a mistake again and do an MVS type contract with one of these Josh Reynolds or, again, a Kendrick Bourne or Darnell Mooney, it's just, it's going to really be disappointing, man. I really want them to, like you just saw that, you can, and I know Sky Moore was the year before, but like Rashee Rice just, you kind of trusted him and boom, what do you know? He developed and really became a force. Trust your scouting, go find a guy in this talented receiver class if you're not going to attack it in free agency. So, all right, Caleb, give us another position. Let's get to another spot.
All right, so there's defensive end is a position I think the Chiefs are going to need to look at. Obviously you'd like to see Mike Dana back. We don't quite know if that's going to happen right now. You have Charles Omenihu that's going to be out. FAU still needs quite a bit of development, and you don't even know if Chris Jones is back. So really you have George Karlaftis locked in. I think that this, this defensive end class, which we might talk about a little later for the draft, I think it's pretty good. They got some solid guys. I just don't know if it's going to fall favorably for the Chiefs, especially with what they need at like receiver, possibly defensive tackle, offensive tackle, some of that stuff. But if they're trying to go in and not like horribly overspend, there's a couple of guys in the defensive end class, this year who I think they can go out and try to get. Now, the most far-fetched one I think is Chase Young, which he's had his ups and downs in his career, got traded though, and really kind of, it's honestly weird. He had less production once he went to San Francisco than he did earlier on in the season in Washington. That was honestly a little bit strange, but he's only 24 years old. He's still got a lot of football left in him. He just didn't have the greatest start to his career. I could see the Chiefs doing one of two things with him, either like investing in him and saying, we're going to commit to coaching you with Joe Cullen and integrating you into becoming like our great defensive end next to George Karlaftis. And this could especially be so if Chris Jones, if a deal doesn't get done, which I think it kind of looks like they might get a deal done right now. And the other two guys I got on this are going to be what probably guys you put on prove-it deals. First one is going to be A.J. Epinesa from the Buffalo Bills. 2 back-to-back productive seasons, 6.5 sacks. They rotate their ends a lot up there. Where I'm at with him is the Bills would probably like to retain him because he's a young budding pass rusher also. But if you've been following, the Bills have completely purged their roster. They have so many free agents. They are pretty much imploding in Buffalo right now, which is wild to see considering they've probably been the media's favorites to win the Super Bowl the last 2 seasons. Yeah, but Epinesa, he could be a guy who I could see you put on like a Drue Tranquill or a Juju Smith-Schuster type deal. You bring him in for 1 year on a cheap deal and say, all right, this is your year. You think you want to be paid like a double-digit sack guy next season and, get that big contract? Well, go out here and get 10.5 sacks, get 12 sacks for us this season, get that deal. And if we like you, we'll give you the money. And if someone else offers you a deal, good luck to you. The other guy is pretty similar, Yetur Gross-Matos. He's a guy I liked out of the draft here a few years ago. I thought he was super athletic. I thought he was strong, good run defender. Just hasn't panned out in Carolina where he's at. Things are different in teams that, are going through all kinds of coaching changes, staff changes. He's had to adjust to a lot of different stuff down there. I think you bring him in an atmosphere like Kansas City, a defensive line room like what Joe Cullen has. You could probably start to build on him a little bit, kind of maybe turn him into maybe like an Emmanuel Ogbah type guy. He turns around, has a productive season, could maybe go get a bigger deal somewhere else, or, maybe they try to revive his career. The last two guys, I think they could get on a prove-it deal. I think with Chase, it'd be more have to go for long-term investment because he's going to have other suitors.
Maybe, man. I don't know. I think you could be right that, or, I think your initial thought that he could get a prove-it deal. I think you could be right, man. There was a lot of disappointing snaps from him in San Francisco, like you kind of mentioned. And I think that's a Brett Veach special if there ever was one, a number 2 overall pick. Being able to revamp his career, I think Veach. I think that is a good call that honestly I really didn't think about when I was looking through it, because the two guys that you mentioned, Epinesa and Gross-Matos, are obviously good fits, and all these guys are because they do need someone that's a strong end, a run down, someone that can take on a block and set the edge against the run. That is really what they need. They need a body in that sense. But, you mentioned Emmanuel Ogbah. He's one of these guys, too. I know, man.
He's just he's just a little older than he was last time.
Yeah. It's literally been 5 years, I think, or 4 years, I guess, since the Super Bowl run. And he got hurt in the 2019 season. But the other name I had was Jadeveon Clowney, man. I feel like that's one name that always gets thrown out every offseason. And, I'm always like, guys, come on. I don't know. This one might be the year where it's like, I think it might be worth it at this point, because he did play well in Baltimore last year. And, I think he's just a very solid, run defender, like I was kind of mentioning. But I think his pass rushing has gotten better as he's aged. So I don't know, Maurice, any of those guys sound, specifically intriguing, or do you have anyone we didn't mention?
Chase is definitely the one that kind of jumped off the board that you like. What again? V special, the one that I think like if I had a chance to go get him, I think it just boils down. I think FAU still needs some development, but you'll see kind of really what the Chiefs feel about him. I think based off what you see at what they do at defensive end in free agency. Like if they feel like he's kind of right there and Chris Jones is re-signed, they might take a shot and then bring in somebody like a Clowney as just like a veteran rotational player. A Minihue, I mean, hopefully he can return to form and he sticks around and he can get there. Outside of that, man, I think we kind of really hit on all the ones that I was thinking. We did. That I was kind of thinking that we had even a chance at getting. Yeah, I know that Zadarius is he going? Smith, is he hitting free agency again this year?
You might be right. That sounds right. I
think he may be one of the ones that's hitting free agent, but he might be for a higher contract and price himself out. But he hasn't really shown that type of dominance that got him to, like. So I wouldn't be mad at that if the Chiefs went after that either.
And he's older too, so he can't demand too much. I think that is a good call on how they feel about FAU too, like reading their free agency actions, because this Drue Tranquill signing is a good example of it. But Brett Veach is very famous for not going into the draft with a glaring hole in his starting lineup, right? It's really he has solutions, even if they're not exciting. he has a full team ready. He's not relying on the draft to fill a spot. And so if they really don't attack defensive end that strongly, it could tell you maybe that they feel a lot better about FAU. But yeah, if they like sign a couple guys or something, because they are thin at defensive end. It's really Karlaftis, FAU, BJ Thompson are the only guys under contract. I think Truman Jones obviously is on the 90 man, but he was just a practice squad guy last year. So, all right, let's stay on the defensive line though, fellas, because this set up perfectly. One thing with this defensive tackle class and free agency is there are a lot of guys that I feel like I'd be in favor of bringing in. And that almost, hopefully that kind of, saturates the market to an extent, where some of these guys and maybe even multiple signings out of these guys can be reasonable. So, the first thing that stands out to me is there are a ton of nose tackle types, a ton of guys that, if they did bring back Chris Jones, you can start next to him and be a legitimate upgrade over what they've had in Derek Nottie the last few years. Guys like DJ Reader, guys like Raekwon Davis from Miami, Greg Gaines. He was with the Bucs last year, but the Rams previously. Tier Tart is a good name. Tim Settle from the Bills. Grover Stewart from the Colts. That's an underrated name, and he's a little older too. I think they really, no matter what happens with Chris Jones, I think they need to make a legit addition at defensive tackle and free agency. And I really think it'd be nice to have maybe like a higher upside or a more talented nose tackle. Caleb, how do you feel about the defensive tackle? Who do you like kind of as you look through it?
I think they need to plan for defensive tackle, thinking that they're probably going to draft one also. Right. That's kind of my take on it, just with what we've seen from the defensive tackle draft class. But there's two ways I think they go here. I think that if they wanted to attack it, they could go with Tier Tart. He's like the younger guy. When he's motivated and playing well, he's dominant. Obviously, They said there were issues with whatever was going on in Tennessee there. It sounds like they had a lot of drama towards the end of their season. He got released, got picked up by the team that ended up winning their division a few weeks later. So that was kind of funny. But now he's a free agent. I feel like just him being a younger guy, he might command a little bit more because when he's on, he's on. Now, if they're going to draft a guy to maybe bring in and be like a mentor type to maybe like a young defensive tackle, I think that's where you'd say like Grover Stewart would be the best option, which he's getting older. So maybe he's a guy that's like wanting to go out and chase a ring a little bit. They're going to have to kind of feel out that situation. Is he looking for one more big payday, or is he looking to maybe go out there and try to get a ring because he plays a very, his time in football probably isn't going to be for much longer, just knowing the position he plays and what he has to do, snap in and snap out. But those would probably be my two favorite guys out of the class. I know Reader's coming off of the injury, so it'd be interesting to monitor like his physicals and everything throughout the process.
Yeah, Grover Stewart, I know he's not like he's not like the true nose tackle, right? He's not a true one tech. He's definitely more of a, an off, kind of a B gap, two gapping kind of player. But man, he is a bull in a china shop on rundowns. Man, I think I would love to see him in a Chiefs uniform. It's like I feel like it'd be like Mike Pennell, except, like a full-time player, Mike Pennell, if he was a little younger and still able to do it for, as many, although, I can't be saying too much. Mike Pennell played a lot in the playoffs. I do want to playoffs. Yeah, no, for real. I do want to say though, Javon Kinlaw is a Brett Veach special as well. We talked about a few Brett Veach specials so far. I feel like him from the Niners, he hasn't been as productive as he could be. He fits that Chris Jones kind of mold, right? He was kind of maybe not compared to Chris Jones, but I remember coming out, he was kind of a similar position. So how are you feeling about these defensive tackles? I mean, they got to add somebody. But I guess to you, like, is it better to attack it in free agency, or do you think it's better to maybe get young and maybe just attack it really hard in the draft? What do you feel like? What do you think?
I think it's going to have to. I kind of agree with Caleb on this. I really think that they're going to go, day one or two at the defensive tackle, depending on how free agency go. I do think they go definitely probably day two. They'll go, but second and third round, I think they get a defensive tackle there. So I will say then if that's the case. I think they probably go more pass rushing defensive tackle in the draft and look for the
Yeah.
bigger body, probably older guy for the run stopper to kind of rotate, bring probably Noddy back on a 1-year deal, and like they've been doing, and then draft another. And then sign another guy. That's why I kind of like the Groper Stewart run stopper. I wouldn't be against stuff coming full circle, and if Fletcher Cox wanted to take a 1-year thing, like I wouldn't be mad at it if Andy Reeves like, let me bring Fletcher Cox in here. Like I wouldn't be mad at that. Like Eagle, older guy, he'll give you some good snaps. Wouldn't be this. I wouldn't want to hear that the first day of the free agency, like, oh, the Chiefs are signing Fletcher Cox. But I wouldn't be mad at that either.
Yeah, they just need bodies, and it would be nice maybe to it's just been Chris Jones and whoever. It would be nice if they get, even if it's an older guy, get a name in there, get some juice in there. All right, well let's take a break here. Those were the 3 or the 4. We only have 3 positions. Those were the 3 I think big positions in free agency. Although there is one other position that they could attack for a starting role, but we'll be right back after this break talking free agency. All right, we're back here on the AP Draft Room podcast, breaking down free agency. It's an exciting time. Again, Monday, the legal tampering period starts, so we could be hearing about Chiefs signing players as soon as Monday morning. All right, we talked about defensive tackle, defensive end, and wide receiver. I do think it's Maurice's turn to pick a position, and we can probably go a little quicker through these positions. But Maurice, which other position are you intrigued by?
I'm going to say I wish I didn't have to look at this, but I do think the Chiefs have to, if Snead is gone, they have to do something next morning.
Ooh. And it does, and for the record, I think it sounds like we all kind of agree that it feels like it's going to happen. So I guess if we're operating under that assumption, you're right? Like they got to add somebody.
I don't feel like they go in there with any type of confidence that you're on a week in, week out basis, you're putting out McDuffie, Watson, and Williams. Like, I don't feel like they're confident enough in Watson and Williams to solely stick on that and draft somebody later round. I feel like if they go into the draft and McDuffie, Williams, and Watson are the only cornerbacks, a cornerback is coming off the board in the first round.
Right, and that's the thing is where if they didn't sign Snead and they signed Jones and they signed a big receiver, like maybe the dots or everything falls to them picking a cornerback early, and that's how you kind of move on from Snead. But that's the thing, man. Like they've developed these guys so well, and a guy like Najee Johnson is coming off his injury. They could definitely convince themselves that hey, just add another draft pick or something, and we don't need to go into free agency. But if they do move on from Snead, it's all of a sudden the outside cornerback position is a little more susceptible. Caleb, are you kind of in that same boat with Maurice? Like, do you feel like they should sign a free agent cornerback if Snead doesn't stay?
I kind of think they would bring in like a veteran presence. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like an all-pro kind of guy or something, but I think they probably want to have someone there that's played in the league before, has some experience against the kind of competition they're going to go in. They're going to go against week in and week out. Because, the draft is, as well as Veach has drafted, that position, it's still a very unpredictable science what they're doing out there. So they're going to want to have that insurance. So it'd probably be worth keeping an eye on.
Well, and important context of this conversation, and probably justifies your point, Maurice, is we have seen a bunch of veteran cornerbacks get released. And so there is a dense market out there where you might be able to get a veteran that can really play solid on the outside for cheap. Guys like Stephon Gilmore out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not seeing as many solid names as I saw earlier on Twitter when everyone was getting dropped. But anyway. There are definitely some names out there that fit the bill. Caleb, let's keep talking other positions though. Is there another position that comes to mind to you that you're attacking in free agency?
Yeah, I would be smart with it, but running back, I mean,
yeah,
think about it, they're possibly getting ready to lose. I just think it's highly unlikely Clyde is back. I think it's just the best thing for both parties at this point to go their opposite direction. Jerick McKinnon, not sure if he's even going to play another snap in the NFL, but it kind of feels like as good as he's been, as important as he's been, that party might be over. And, we kind of know with the cap, they can't get too luxurious. Would I be mad if they splashed a little bit at running back? No, because I do think as good as Pacheco's been, he's still kind of just like an angry runner. Put your head down and go. They could probably use someone with a little more dynamic ability. But a name I've kind of had an eye on, a guy I think they can maybe get on like a prove it deal, a real cheap deal, be Antonio Gibson. I think that him being kind of a bigger back, he'd be a good third down back for the Chiefs. It'd be kind of like having a Darrell Williams type body back, but I think his skills as a receiving back would fit Andy Reid's system well. It would kind of help them out a lot if they could kind of interchange him with what he does and to give them a bigger body in the backfield.
Oh yeah, no, you and I were on the same page with that, with Antonio Gibson, and I think a lot of Chiefs Kingdom has been on that a little bit. He was in the enemy, he was with the enemy last year, so there might be some familiarity in terms of terminology, just kind of coaching points for the running back position. I think he's been underutilized in Washington. He's not the most reliable player. He's a fumbler. He's had some fumbles, but yeah, I think that's a great. I like the Darrell Williams throwback. That's a good callback to that body type, and he was a good receiver. That guy, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but that guy, he was mossing Raiders. So
I forgot about that catch.
That catch was crazy.
Oh man, the random Chiefs running backs over the years, we gotta love them. Maurice, you actually wrote about the running back position for the site, kind of previewing the offseason. Is there anything that you see? Is there any other names out there that you're interested in, or is Antonio Gibson?
I didn't put this name in the site because I didn't think the Chiefs would make this type of splash. But the more I think about him, like, I know he will want some money, but I also think last year showed him that he's not the main guy that he thought he was. And Isaiah Pacheco, Tony Pollard backfield, I would love. I think he can come in. He'll add the dynamic things that the Chiefs offense could use. He knows how to play that third down role, so he can step in and be more dynamic than what McKinnon was in the offense. Lessen his carries. I think last year showed him and everybody that he's not the every down back that people thought they was getting. So I think that will complement Pacheco so well. I just don't know what type of money Pollard will be actually looking for.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that because he was supposed to, go off last year and he did not in a contract year. And that's tough. And I did see a report. I think that Dallas was interested in bringing him back. I mean, they don't have any other talent at the running back position. I guess Deuce Vaughn, can't forget Deuce Vaughn, but yeah, I like that because he's explosive. Another one in that same category, to me, and I know some people are going to be like, oh, he's washed, but I think it's in a similar category. Austin Eckler, in terms of if you're not making him the number one back, the primary back, and he's kind of maybe just being more of a pass down auxiliary back off of Pacheco, man, I think he's a dangerous fit in this offense. And he's a hard worker, man. He's a muscle hamster. I mean, that dude's freaking jacked. So I'd be in favor of that. I highlighted DeAndre Swift for the site, but I feel like he will probably get a multi-year deal from somebody, and I don't know if we're going to do that. All right, we talked about running back enough. Left tackle is probably the last one we need to hit on here. I think of, and they do need depth on the interior offensive line, right? Or just a swing tackle too. I think I'd like to see them maybe attack that in the draft, though. I don't know about y'all, real quick. How do you feel about kind of attacking the depth of the offensive line, real quick?
I definitely think draft is where they should do it. Stay young there.
Right.
They I know they brought a couple of guys, drafted a couple of guys, and brought a couple of undrafted free agents in last year. I'm gonna forget the guy of Tennessee's name that they had brought in, but I think they attacked
Carvin. Anthony Carvin, I think.
Yeah. I think he made the practice squad, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, he may be somebody there that's developed enough in year two to make it to the backup rim. I think they draft another person, interior lineman late, or mid to late. That kind of thing tell me what they really thinking. If they looking for a guy that can come in and probably play, you'll see it maybe happen like the third, fourth round. I think you'll see later on a little bit in the draft that the Chiefs would go there.
Yeah, I'm with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they would probably be wise to bring in some sort of veteran presence at tackle, whether it be like a guy you know is going to
Yeah.
start or a guy that can come in and compete with Wanya Morris. And then on draft day, you don't really have to have that kind of worry that you have to do something immediately. You kind of have you kind of have like that security blanket to fall back on, knowing, yeah, we are going to have a competition at left tackle, but we are still pretty solid across the board on an offensive line, so we can make it work because the board doesn't always fall the way you want it to.
Right.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's the thing. I was setting up the left tackle talk because that is, I think, one that I do feel like it's important. You at least get somebody that you can like just in a vacuum. You can say he's our week one starter. Like we don't feel panicked about it. We don't feel terrible. Like he's a solid starter. Like, and the guy I previewed for the site was Cornelius Lucas. I see Caleb that you highlighted him as well. K-State product, big veteran from 11 years of about 11 years. Huge dude, absolutely massive dude. His wingspan I saw at the combine was 88 inches. I didn't see anybody approach that this year. I think that's a ridiculous wingspan. So he's someone that has started 12 games over the last 4 years at left tackle for Washington. He's been a right tackle for them at times too, starting a handful of games too. So he could be maybe just a swing tackle too, if Wanye really does prove it. But I think he's maybe a good solution for. All right, you give Wanye some competition, but you're still giving Wanye a very real path to just being the left tackle and on day one without thinking about it. Cornelius Lucas isn't that good. He's not. Donovan Smith was a 7-year straight starter, 16 games a year. I mean, that's not what this guy is. But I think it makes sense that they might go the step lower. And there's not really that many true left tackles that are cheap, right? Tyron Smith's out there. I don't know if they're going to sign him to the deal that he might. Although, who knows? Maybe they can. Maybe he can. Maybe he's not asking for much. What do you guys think? Left tackle, Maurice. Do you agree that they need to have someone with Wanye?
I do. I always feel like, and it's like they always think that way too, to have some type of competition there, just to see. So it's always, I always wonder still, like, is that Taylor experiment going to come back alive, or did they see enough from him to know that there's no way he goes to left tackle? You just wonder it. So I think they do need to bring somebody in here with more, just in case he doesn't show or take that step forward that you think he's going to take, that you have some type of security type of blanket there. And then I think draft wise, they'll go versatile, probably somebody that plays some multiple positions on the line. They love to do that. So
that's true. All right, Caleb, your final thoughts on left tackle, how they can attack it.
One guy to keep an eye on is Yosh Nijman. He's played for the Green Bay Packers for the last few seasons. He's actually started quite a few games in his career because of the injuries they sustained. He didn't play too much this last season. He's a guy that can come in and be like pretty solid swing tackle, but he's still like a younger free agent with time to develop. He's got good athletic tools. He'd be a good fit in the Chiefs. He'd be a good fit in the Chiefs offense. He's a strong run blocker. He's a guy who, if he had to come in and start, for an extended period of time at tackle, I think he'd be okay. And the Chiefs would what they do.
Yeah, that's a good call. That is definitely a good call. And again, he can, if Wanye does just outdo him, he can be a swing tackle. He's definitely can fit that role. So yeah, that's our free agency preview. I didn't feel like we needed to touch on backup quarterback. QB2, we'll see what happens there. But all right, let's get to the weekly segment. It's time for Prospect of the Week. That's right. Every episode will name one prospect each that we predict will be on the Chiefs draft board, and we're just trying to name as many future Chiefs as possible by draft day. Yes, last time I picked Xavier Worthy, who is now the most mocked man in Chiefs Kingdom since he ran his 40 time. Everyone loves to put him at 32. But I also had Brian Thomas Jr., the LSU receiver from the first week. Caleb, you had Johnny Newton the first week, and then Braylon Allen last week, the Wisconsin running back. Johnny Newton, the Illinois defensive tackle. Nate gave us Bucky Irving, the Oregon running back, last week. And so, all right, I'm gonna give our guests the opening stage here. Be our opener, Maurice. Who is your prospect of the week?
Prospect of the week, and I kind of set myself up for where I wanted to go, kind of talking about the Chiefs and the versatile offensive lineman. that may be there later on. I'm going to go Isaiah Adams out of Illinois.
Okay,
6'4".
what a poll.
Yeah, 6'4".
I've watched a little of him, so yeah.
315 pounds. Hand size is decent. 9, Big Ten honorable mention, right? Team captain, so he got the leadership skills that you want to see. But the thing that jumped off is his positional like versatility. I know like they love that up front, definitely when you're talking about that. So I mean, he played both guard positions, left and right guard, and he's played both tackle positions during his career. So I feel like that type of versatility is something that they will love to bring in, have some developmental traits, and should be there on day 3. So I'm thinking like if he's there on day 3 and you get somebody that has played that many positions that you can move around and help develop, that shows he has at least a very high intelligence and high football IQ to be able to play both guards and tackle. So yeah, I think that's my prospect of the week. Isaiah Adams, Illinois.
I love it, man, because he is definitely someone, just doing preliminary research, that stood out to me because he is from Canada. He went to Garden City Community College. So he's had some Kansas ties, but just a massive dude. Yeah. I mean, just a big guard. Definitely someone that maybe even, could kick out on the outside, at the NFL level if they need him to. So I love that pick, Maurice. Caleb, you got the floor.
Just real quick about Adams. He's got real heavy hands, plays nasty, plays mean.
Wow, look at us. We've all seen him. That's a deep pull, man. I'm impressed.
Chiefs have taken Illinois offensive linemen too. Jeff Allen and John Asamoah. Those have been guys who are Illini that have played on the Chiefs O-line in the past. So not that
you didn't even get the toughest one, Nick Allegretti.
Oh, Nick Allegretti. There we go. There's an Andy Reid connection to that university. But for my prospect of the week, I'm going to stick on the offensive line with another guy who's got some positional versatility. He's a local prospect from Kansas City, Kansas. But I'm going to go with Cooper Bebe from Kansas State University. When I watch him play, he just plays the game with a certain level of physicality and nastiness. And I know he played tackle out there. He's going to kick in and be a guard or a center in the NFL. So if they were drafting him, they pick him up in the second round. The reason I think that's important is because in a year from now, there's a chance that they are going to be without, possibly Creed Humphrey or even Joe Thuney or Trey Smith. As we've come to realize during the Mahomes era, the interior 3 are just as important to the Chiefs as like tackles would be for another team. Because, if the tackles get beat like we've seen in the past, Mahomes can work around that. Where he struggles is when the rush is right up the middle, guys are in his face, and he can't really get comfortable. He needs that wall formed up front. The Chiefs value guard and, center a lot differently than these other teams do. You've seen teams like not invest in these positions. The Chiefs have invested heavily in them since that Super Bowl where they got blown out by Tampa. It would not shock me if they drafted this guy for a year, sat him, let him, got him used to what they're going to do, and then they let him loose the next season, and just have a slew of, all-pro guards after all-pro guards. Maybe even if Creed Humphrey, they can't work something out, he could probably be a guy that kicks in and plays center. So I keep an eye on him as like an outside possibility. And also got to give the shout-out to the local guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Guard honestly probably is like you could almost bet on them picking it in a decent spot, because I think it speaks to Brett Veach's philosophy as a drafter, right? That, like we talked about, he doesn't want to enter the draft with any holes on his current roster, but in the draft, he's going to address future needs. He's going to look ahead. He's done that plenty of times through the draft, and so that is a good call on both of those guys, because both guys could be interior, could turn into starters down the line. All right, I left y'all suspensed because I did not write down my prospect of the week, but I do think we need to go on the defensive line here, because I just talked about guard. I think they are absolutely going to pick a defensive tackle at some point in the draft. I just can't imagine they don't at some point. I'm picking Chris Jenkins from Michigan because he just feels like a guy that if they really needed to, he could play on the edge on early downs, be that strong defensive end that they might just really need right away. And so if you're picking him early, I think there could be a lot of logic there. There's another guy, big defensive tackle end type. That's more of an edge in my eyes, I guess, in my rankings from Missouri. But I don't know. To me, Chris Jenkins is more of an actual true defensive tackle. So you can make him, the Chris Jones replacement, or just the future. But he can also kick out. I think if he really, really needs to, they can train him that way. I think he's versatile enough.
Where you think he go? You think second, third?
That's the thing. Like he didn't blow away the combine. So he might, just be kind of that midday too. But that's the thing. Like, I don't think he's maybe making it to the Chiefs' second round pick.
Yeah.
I think he might be like a top 50 pick still. So they might have to make a move to get him in a value. But I just feel like he just fits a lot of what they want from defensive linemen. And
that's what he's
got the pedigree.
Like if Snead gets traded, they got to use whatever they get this year for him to move up in this first or the second round. Like I think that's what it has to, unless they're getting like a high second or something for him that already puts them there. They got to use whatever if that happens, whatever they get from that to move up. Because that's what I was asking you about, Chris. And I was like, dude, I don't think he goes first, but I don't think he falls to the Chiefs in the second.
Right, and that is where it might just not be in the right value, right? Like he might just kind of be outside of that bubble.
Yeah.
But I just feel like he is going to be, and it's like, the reason I bring up Darius Robinson, I didn't want to say his name because hey, he could be a prospect of the week for somebody else down the road. I don't want to, talk about him too much, but he might just go a little higher where it's like, he might just be out of there. I don't know. It just feels like the teams really like him. It's kind of the, well, I guess he was younger, but I was going to say the Georgia #1 pick from, just kind of that big, massive dude. People just fall in love with that kind of stuff. So, all right. Yeah. Prospects of the week. And we're going to keep talking about defensive linemen because let's get to this, Caleb. We are talking draft prospects. Maurice, feel free to chime in. Feel free to hang out. But you definitely, you don't need to be as nerdy as us. You don't need to be, as geeky, as us here because, we probably spent a little too much time diving into these the classes of the edge defenders and the offensive tackles today, Caleb. And just like last week, we are going to do the star, solid, sleeper, slacker categories. So just one player per category for each of us. And let's just get it going. I'm going to start right off the gate with the star class of the offensive tackles. I guess we're starting on the offensive side, Caleb. But in my star category, I have Troy Fountainu from Washington, who I didn't think I would maybe. When you first do your initial kind of looks at everybody, like, oh, that guy's not a left tackle in the league, right? Like, he looks like a shorter stature dude. But man, I don't know. The way he moves, his stature actually gives him very, very good leverage and center of gravity combined with that foot quickness, but he's also got some long arms for his size, man. He's got arms, I think, in the 34-inch range, if I remember correctly. So that's someone that I am absolutely intrigued with. 34.5 inches for someone that's not even 6'4". So that is big time. And so obviously he's probably not going to follow the Chiefs or anything, but we're talking stars here in the offensive tackle class. I think he can be right up there with Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt in terms of, longtime starters at left tackle. I really do. I think he has that ability. But he's an older prospect. Alton Fashanu probably have a little more higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think with him, he's somewhere in between being like a Rashawn Slater type or kicking inside to guard and being like a Joe Tooney type, because Joe Tooney is kind of like a similar transition.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good call.
The league. I don't think there's any way he's really going to be a bad player. I think that whatever team gets him, honestly, if he can snap, I'd probably see if he could snap too. I think he'd probably be like a pretty solid center in the league with his build and his frame, kind of like a Jason Kelsey type.
Reach blocks. Oh my god.
Yeah. His second level block, he's going to be good also. But
right.
For my guy, I went with, it's easy to overthink the draft and stuff, but Olu Fashanu could have been the #1 tackle taken last year in the draft class with his level of athletic ability. He's got clean footwork, and he is a road grader in the run game. I really just like his competitive fire he plays with. He's always trying to finish guys. He sticks on them through the whistle, but then his anchor and pass pro, the way he can pop down, be able to take on the power rush, but also go against the speed guys. I know there's just been a lot of talk about the other guys. I still think he's the most complete tackle in this prospect, in this draft class. I just think that people have kind of gotten fatigued about talking about him through the course of the last year and a half since people did think he was going to come out last year.
So you like him better than Joe Alt?
I do like him better than Joe Alt. I just kind of like the way that he bends and plays a little bit. I think Joe Alt could play a little bit high at sometimes. I think that can get him in trouble early in his career.
That is very true. I 100% agree with that. His hand placement is very, and he's tall, so I mean it makes sense. But I mean, it's gonna come up.
Yeah, Olu's got some strikes now. He throws some shots with his hands, stuns some guys
with those 8.5-inch hands or whatever. That was pretty remarkable how small his hands were at the combine.
Everything I've kind of seen on Olu, and I haven't watched film on him, but just everything I kind of read on him was saying that he needed to get stronger. How do y'all like? What's your take there on that, Caleb?
I think we talk about it with O linemen all the time, like finding guys that come in like NFL strong can sometimes be rare because a lot of these guys, and Ron's mentioned before, they get kind of that old man streak the few years into their career where they start to get kind of used to it. Like finding like a Tristan Wirfs who's like ready for that NFL bull rush from Nick Bosa on day one just doesn't happen all the time. Like you've even seen it with like good tackles the last couple of classes. Like Charles Cross is probably going to be a good tackle in the NFL, but there are times when you watch him play the 49ers and Nick Bosa was eating his lunch. Like that kind of stuff, I think you just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. No matter how high you're getting picked as a left tackle, like, it's going to take a year at least, to really, look like a stud. I don't know. Not a lot of guys come out right out the gate like Rashawn Slater did his year. But all right, let's get to the solid category because these are guys that are more likely to be picked by the Chiefs, right? These are actual options for the Chiefs. Caleb, let's hear it because I think I'm with you out here.
Yeah, and the guy that I went with for this category, let me make sure it's the right category. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. I just watch him so much, and the Chiefs have an Oklahoma pipeline for the offensive line. They've had so many connections and ins and outs of guys who have played there, who they've taken, and who have played for them. Because their offensive line coach Bill Bedenbaugh is one of the best in the league. But when you watch Guyton, he like reminds you of a bigger version of Wanya Morris, which obviously they've been coached by the same guy, so they're going to have similar tendencies in how they play. But this dude has a powerful upper body. He's really got, decent footwork for being, he's like 6'8", but he's not like this big lumbering guy. He kind of moves around quick. Now, their offense that they play in, the ball is coming out of their quarterback's hands faster. They're running RPOs or a lot of sweeps and stuff. So you're kind of limited, kind of like how you were with Wanya and how much film you have of him, like when the quarterback's taking a true drop back. But everything I've seen out of him, I think he'd be a safe pick at 32 because even if you don't start him right away, you can, have him sit a year, come in and compete. And honestly, he could probably beat out Wanya eventually for the job. Or if they're dissatisfied with Juwan Taylor, because Guyton did play right tackle at Oklahoma, he's a guy that, if Juwan Taylor becomes a cap casualty at some point, he'd be your guy competing for the right tackle spot. But just size, length, really long arms. So be on the Chiefs' radar.
Yeah. The first thing that I said to you, I think, about him was that he's just a tower. Like he really is just like this tower. But yeah, no, I agree with you. He's not like a lumbering tower where, you can get right by him. He just takes up so much space, on the corner. Like there's just no room, to work as a pass rusher. And he is someone that is only going to get better, in my opinion, because he is coming out after his fourth year. So he's not the youngest he can be, but he primarily played defensive line senior year of high school. And he also played basketball. And at TCU, he was at TCU for 2 years to start his career. He was like technically an H-back for some of that time. Like, I guess they used him as like an off-ball tight end, kind of like a fullback. But like, this guy is not, like an offensive tackle from the get-go. So he has some room to work and he already looks solid. So I think I like your pick there. I'm going with Roger Rosengarten though from Washington. He is the right tackle from there. So I have both Washington offensive tackles on my list. But I think the interesting thing to think about with the Washington offense is that Michael Penix was left-handed, and so Rosengarten was technically the blindside player. And so, yes, you're still not having the left tackle footwork and stuff, but the pat or just the scheme, I guess, is going to be flipped to a point where you are being used like you're a left tackle in a traditional offense. And I think he was a very solid player, man. He's someone that has gained a little steam on NFL Twitter, but it's because, for specifically for the Chiefs, it's just because he's nimble and, he just has, good size. Came in over 6'5", 33.5-inch arms. Yeah, I guess the arms could be a little longer, but very athletic, had a 9.59 RAS. So I am big on Rosengarten as someone that's going to, be a solid player in the NFL. He's going like, round 3, I think, in that range. And that's where it's like, that's where Wanye was picked last year. And I actually I think he's got maybe a more solid profile than Wanye, even though I do think Wanye might have a higher ceiling if he can get to it. So, all right. Sleepers. I'm going with the Missouri guy, Caleb. Javon Foster, dude. I liked what I saw from him, man. Big old dude, right? Like just a massive dude. 6'5", 34, 5/8 inch arms, 83, over 83-inch wingspan. But man, I feel like for what he lacks in, like, he definitely isn't like the quickest of feet and like, gonna be, catching all the speed rushers and everything. But what he lacks in that, he makes up for in just like tenacity and like, he finishes blocks. He brings in, he punches hard and really just, it seems like he really plays with an attitude. And it stood out to me. I don't know. And I like to see that. He's a guy that's a very old recruit. He's been the Missouri's left tackle for 3 years. And he was originally class of 2018 in high school. So experience for sure. And definitely someone I'm interested in in day 3 to maybe have a guy that can play left tackle and maybe, be a guard too, maybe depth guard for you at the same time. But he can play left tackle, Caleb. I know you've looked at him a little bit.
Yeah, I thought about putting him down for this category, but I avoided doing it as not to just be the complete Mizzou homer on here because I've got someone else later on in the show I'm going to talk about. But Foster does kind of play with that attitude you talk about. He kind of brings the intensity to the line. Really good run blocker. If you put him in a team that's going to want to line up and pound the ball, like he's probably going to be more successful in a run-heavy fit scheme or a team that runs a lot of play action type stuff. I could see him, I could see him coming to the Chiefs and they're like, you're going to be like our, like kind of how like Cam Irving was here a little bit ago, where it's like you need to be able to play all the positions. You kind of need to be able to know what to do. You may not be a starter right away, but you're going to play key reps for us. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to be a day 3 pick, but he could be a guy kind of like a Rasheed Walker type, maybe, who's a day 3 pick. And then all of a sudden he finds himself starting just because he possesses the right tools and he possesses the right mindset to play that position.
I was a Rasheed Walker guy for sure.
Definitely.
Who's your sleeper?
My sleeper, I'm going to go to Texas. And I feel like Texas had so many prospects that you forget that, a part of the reason why they complete a lot of those deep passes downfield is because their quarterback had time to throw. They had 2 good tackles. One of them is going to come out next year. He's going to be unbelievable. We'll talk about him a lot. But I'm going to go with Christian Jones, their right tackle. Just watching him play, man, he's just solid across the board at everything he does, and he's got a real nasty streak. He's finishing guys to the ground. He's constantly giving, his quarterback time to throw. I think he's really good at jump sets, but he has like solid footwork. A part of the reason why they were in these close games against these teams, like when they beat Alabama, it's because their quarterback had time to throw. He's taken on a good pass rusher like Chris Braswell, who I think we might talk about later in the show. He's taken on that power rush and sitting down, sinking on him. He's got strong hands. I think this is just a case of Texas has so many good players. He's kind of been overlooked because when you watch him and compare him to the guys who they're saying could be like early day 2 picks, I don't really see it. And he had a very good combine. He ran a good 40 time. He had good testing numbers. So I don't know how he's quite fallen off the board. He's not like the youngest guy in the world, but he could come in and be like a quality contributor, quality depth player early on, if not become a starter at some point.
Yeah, he was the Texas left tackle in 2021. He moved to right tackle for 22 and 23. But he's an interesting one too, where he started football as a junior in high school. He played defensive end originally, and he actually played soccer before football, I guess, which is very odd for a big offensive tackle. So
I've got some clips of him up on Twitter, man. It's some pretty good stuff he puts out against really solid competition.
Love that sleeper then. All right, Maurice. I know we're just going so long. We're gonna be talking ball all night. And it's getting late here. So appreciate you joining us tonight. I'm gonna let you let the people know where to find you and just plug anything you got going on.
Man, I appreciate y'all, man. As always, Ron, as always, Caleb. Find me on Twitter, Reese Nichols, Instagram, and Facebook, all the same, Reese Nichols. And I talk Chiefs everywhere. So check out my articles on Arrowhead Pride underneath Maurice Elston. And I appreciate y'all having me, man.
Yes, sir. All right, Maurice. Get ready for free agency, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm ready.
All right, Caleb. Now we got to talk about slackers at the offensive tackle position. And I'm going to be a little disappointed with yours, but that's okay. Mine, though, is a name that gets comped to the Chiefs. It is Patrick Paul from Houston. I feel like he just has very awkward sets, awkward movements. Kind of just is just has awkward. Like awkward is the word that keeps coming to my mind, but he's like top heavy a little bit where it just doesn't feel like he plays with that good a balance. He moves well and he's been playing left tackle for a while. He's a 3-year starter at Houston. He absolutely has the arm length and the wingspan, right? 36.25 inch arms, 86.25 inch wingspan. But I don't know, Caleb, to me, it's just like when I watch him, like, it just doesn't seem like that's going to work. I don't know. He just doesn't look like an NFL left tackle to me.
Yeah, I think he really struggles to bend. He's kind of tight, and in pass protection, he tends to like turn his shoulders to the outside pretty quickly. He kind of opens it up, which for playing as long as he has, I don't think his fundamentals are that good. I don't think he really handles power that well. So I think it could be easy to see why he's on the slacker list.
Well, sweet. All right. Well, go ahead and disappoint me.
I see Jordan Morgan, and I see the clips going around, and I go, yeah, he had a good game versus Leitai Latu from UCLA. He's good when he's out there trying to mirror guys or take on like the quick edge rusher, but there's some film I've watched in him where he completely misses with his punch, and he's got a guy in his chest crushing him into the pocket to start the play. And I'm like, well, man, that's going to be half of the pass rushers you see in the NFL. You got to have an answer for power. So I don't think he's like going to be – I mean, I see people putting him down as like a consensus day one pick like a lot of this tackle class has, and I can generally disagreed with that. I think he's about a 4th-round talent. That's just kind of where I see him at. You know, you got to be consistent throughout the course of a season with what you do. You can't just flash once or twice against a good player. You know, I want to see how you're doing. You know, you're blocking up the 6'6" kind of long arm freak show defensive end. Well, how are you doing against a 6'3", 285-pound guy who's just gonna be a bowling ball right into you? You know, you got to have that consistency. So I've kind of thought from the start though that this tackle class is being overrated just a touch. Not just him.
No, I agree, man. Because and honestly, maybe it's just because none of them are left tackles. Like none of these guys are actual left tackles that are at the top of the class. And the guys that are, Patrick Paul, Jordan Morgan, they fall into our slacker category. No, Jordan Morgan was almost my solid category, honestly. Just because, and maybe I did need to watch a little more because, from what I saw, I do really feel like he could make it as a left tackle, but even if not, I feel like he's just going to be a really quality guard, if anything, just because he does have the foot quickness. He can get to the second level very quickly. And he does have, if I'm not mistaken, I've watched a few of these guys where now I'm getting them mixed up in my head, but he does have very big hands. Almost 11-inch hands, even though he has the short arms. So you can kind of see that where he can control you a little bit and he can like punch, but I do agree with you that you will see just kind of just bad hand usage, like especially as a pass protector. But it's something that I kind of chalk up to maybe, he's an older player, so it's probably not, good to say this, but maybe it's something that, Chiefs can coach up or a team can coach up how the best way to hand strike, keeping your hands. He kind of just gets them wide and just like you said, he just kind of lets people into his chest. So yeah, as I'm talking it out, like he doesn't sound that solid of a player, but I don't know. I just feel like the fundamental athleticism, the big hands, I feel like he'll find a way, and the right coaching staff will get the most out of him. So, all right. Well, edge defenders, Caleb, are we ready to talk about pass rushers? Although a lot of mine are not necessarily, well, there's some pass rushers, but that's the thing. Like we've been talking about all episode and all podcasts. The Chiefs need a defensive end with some size, with some big boy ability, and there's not that many guys in this class that necessarily fit that. It's a lot of rush ends, right? Do you agree with me?
Definitely, man. There's like not a ton of the true like defensive ends. You got a bunch of the edges, bunch of outside linebackers.
Bunch of 2-point stances. Every time I turn on an edge defender, it's a 2-point stance, man. It drives me freaking crazy. I just want to see someone come out of a 3-point stance.
We got some 3-point stance guys in here. Not the first one, though.
Yeah, go for it. Who's your star of the edge defender class?
Yeah, I fell into this trap with Arnold Ebiketie a couple years ago. But when I watch Chop Robinson on film, in my brain, there's just no way he's not going to be awesome. Because you watch this guy's first step off the ball, you watch him transfer power into a tackle's chest and then blow past them, and then put the little bend on him to get to the quarterback. I mean, he is just like built absolutely, like an absolute rubber band that's ready to explode. But he's more physical than I think a lot of these other 2-point stance edge rushers are. He gets down on a 4-point stance, He's not like a tiny, like little 240-pound edge rusher. He's a big 255-pound guy. He's built like a brick house. And I think that actually he played well against the run, against teams that are good at running the ball, physical teams in the Big Ten. He's able to hold his own, but then he gets to the rare pass rush. Now, obviously a little bit of concern. He's had some injury history in the past. He hasn't really played a full season yet. But I think when you talk about just the level of untapped potential he has, I think he's going to be a home run of a pick. And I really think he could end up being a guy that could maybe still be around if the Chiefs wanted to trade up and go get a guy like him.
Yeah, I know. He came in at 28th on the athletic consensus board, so he is in that range. And yeah, when you just watch him kind of at a glance, and you watch like a guy like Dallas Turner who's going so high, Dallas Turner is definitely against the run, he's probably much better. But I agree with you that Chop Robinson has some density or some build to him, I should say, that definitely shows up when he's taking on blockers. He definitely doesn't get pushed around like some of these other guys that can explode off the ball. I saw someone, I think it was during the combine, they were like, Chop Robinson is going to be like D Ford. I don't think that's how. I don't know. Do you have a reaction to that? Because I just feel like that's selling him a little short.
He plays a lot better with his hands early. Because I've watched some film on him throughout the week. I've got some clips, but there's some plays where he'll go inside against like some of the interior guys, and they'll be getting ready to set up for speed, and he just explodes into their, he blows them up off the ball, and they're kind of like stunned because they don't expect a guy built like that to actually hit him with a bull rush, but he did. It impressed me.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where D Ford was never, he was never doing any of that. He was all around the edge, all speed. Yeah. All right. I went with Laiatu Latu. Didn't say that correctly, but for the UCLA edge rusher, to me, the top of this edge rusher class is not exciting. I do think like a guy like Jared Verse just feels like he's going to be a good player in the NFL. Dallas Turner, I think in the right system he could be, but he just kind of feels like a solid player. But Latu has the pass rush skills and the juice. His hand work is crazy. He has a very mature plan when he's attacking an offensive tackle. Can get to his counter moves. Can really. Who was it? Fuaga, Talisi Fuaga, the Oregon State right tackle I was watching. He was having a rough time with Latu at times. Only a few times. There was also times he was playing well against him. But it's just because, man, he is very good at getting the hands off him, but also has that bend. But he's kind of long and lanky, so he's not the bendiest guy, but he can bend enough and has the handwork to kind of go with it. So I feel like he's just out of all the guys in the top of the class, I'm definitely the most excited about him for his pass rush potential. Just as even if he doesn't turn into more than just like a very exciting third down defensive end. but I'm excited for him. Have you any takes on Latu?
I mean, just with his production he had in college and his athletic profile, there's no way he's not going to be a high round pick. He's out of the Chiefs' range, but it's hard to imagine he doesn't have a lot of success in the league.
All right. Well, solid prospect for me was Brandon Dorless, who has already been talked about on this podcast because Nate actually picked him as his defensive tackle. I think it was Sleeper last week. But, watching him, I mean, he's in that, he plays on the edge. I mean, he does. He was Oregon's defensive end last year. And man, he just has some movement to him that just like looks so natural. He has that kind of that kind of ability to, as he's taken on blocks, to just kind of seamlessly, just kind of use his hands and use, strong leverage too, to just kind of get past blocks seamlessly. Just strong hands, long arms that he uses very well. That helps too. Like, he's just a guy that I feel like if the Chiefs wanted, he's one of the few strong defensive ends in this class. And I feel like he makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs. And if they pick him on in round 3, he has some pass rush upside along with being a big body. So I like him as a defensive end for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, and like we mentioned, he's one of those guys who's going to play with his hands down. He's probably got the versatility to go inside and outside. He is a load, man. He's a big guy. He's hard to deal with in there. A little bit similar to the guy I chose for the solid category, and gonna do the Mizzou guy, Darius Robinson. I wrote a little piece about him. I'm sure it'll be out here at some point. But the thing with Robinson is he compares extremely similarly to Charles Omenihu. When you look at like their height, weight, testing numbers, what they did in college, it is absurdly similar how close together they were, especially since Mizzou did have Robinson playing as like a 3-tech 4-eye, bounce out to 5. But the thing I think with Robinson is I just like his ability to be able to do the power rush from the outside. He's got a little bit of juice. He's still developing. He's not like a really young prospect, but he's got such a good athletic profile. Because like you look at him, you think, oh, what's this guy weigh? 260, and he weighs in at 285 at the combine. Like, he's a dense dude, like not like no body fat at all, just a big muscular guy who's still developing as an athlete. I mean, if the Chiefs picked him up, he'd probably be the perfect fit. Unfortunately, it sounds like there's about 20 other teams interested in him, but I just see him being a guy that has a long, solid, like 10 to 12-year career, probably make the Pro Bowl a couple of times, come close to maybe, 85 to 100 sacks in his career.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think he's just like the perfect fit for the Chiefs at the defensive end spot. And I really feel like, I mean, if he's kind of floating around there, they're going to be really tempted. I was pleasantly surprised with how little, or I guess I should put it like this. Like, usually when I watch a guy with his size at the defensive end spot, you just kind of, there's just going to be some natural kind of awkward, clunky movements when you're that big and that long and hold that much weight while you're trying to play a very kind of dynamic position. But man, I was very pleasantly surprised with his movement ability. Just like his hands are quick and clean. His counter moves are quick and clean. Like, he's not like just this he really doesn't move. Like you said, I guess you really just said it. Like, he looks like he moves really like a 260 player, not a 285. Because even like a guy like Charles Omenihu, in my opinion, is kind of a clunky mover. Like, he works through it, but like he just kind of has those awkward movements because he's so long and big. And I don't see it as much with Darius Robinson. I feel like he just kind of he's a really good athlete overall for his size.
No,
so yeah,
definitely though. He's got that little bend, hips, everything. It's nothing not to like, really.
Yeah, Spags is going to be very interested if again he's floating around. But I'm really interested to hear our sleepers here, or hear your sleeper, because he was someone I watched late in this process, and I don't know why I'm teasing it like this because I'm going to talk about mine first. Chris Braswell, the Alabama edge rusher, is my sleeper, and he was someone that I wasn't gonna put at sleeper, but the more guys I watch, the more I realize, man, I really do like him compared to the other guys. He's kind of a leaner body, right? He's a skinnier body. He's definitely not, he was playing that two-point stance at Alabama. He was definitely more of a rush end. But man, at the same time, he did come in 257 at the combine. He almost has the 33-inch arms. His wingspan's almost 81 inches. He does have some length to him, and he's explosive, man. He's explosive with his first step. He's got good flexibility. He's got good outside pass rush moves. I saw him win around the corner with that Ngakoue kind of jump rush, where he kind of just jumps and bats the hands down at the same time. So he's definitely got the bend, I think, and that's kind of what brought me to him the most, maybe out of all these guys, because I wasn't really excited about the edge class, after some of these guys. And he was one that, like, I wanted to find someone I liked more than him, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like he gets to the league, maybe he gets a little stronger, and so he can hold up a little better because he is a skinny body, but he's got some pass rush moves, and so that's going to get you a spot in the league. And so I'm definitely, again, he's 42 on the consensus board, so maybe he's not much of a sleeper. But I think he's got, a legit pass rush ability, and he's not someone that I hear talked about enough.
I didn't know sleepers went to Alabama.
Okay. Fine, Mr. Western Michigan over here.
Okay.
You gotta pull it from the depths.
I will say about Braswell, though, he got overlooked a lot, right? Because he's got another great pass rusher next to him. He is a blank canvas of a player, and he has really good power.
Yeah,
they put his hand in the dirt and say, you're going to develop into our strong side defensive lineman or defensive end. I think he can do it. But I'm going to go with the Western Michigan guy. I'm going to go with Marshawn Nealand, and he played primarily defensive end up there. He did a lot of transferring around, defensive end, 3 technique, 4-eye. He played a little nose tackle for them also. Extremely athletic player, consistently double teamed, though. Like, those guys in that conference, they knew who they had to stop when they're playing that team. That's not a very good team, so he wasn't going to get a lot of chance to play on TV or anything. But when you watch him, he does play strong. He plays hard. He had a good combine time. I think, honestly, he's kind of like the small school version of Byron Murphy, just a little bit. Just the way he plays, kind of like, just like kind of a smaller guy, but she's not as short, but he's kind of like juiced up. He's taking on a lot of double teams. He's creating penetration, even if he doesn't have the real production there. And they also did hand him the ball off one time. He did have a rushing touchdown this past season. I think a guy like that, 5th round, with his athletic profile and as hard as he plays the game, why not take a shot? But even though he is a little stocky, he does have the longer arms. I think that gives him some hope also. So day 3 guy, go for it. Take a shot on him.
No, you mentioned kind of the fascinating part about him right at the end there, because he's 6'3", 267 at the combine. That's kind of an odd frame, right? But the 34.5-inch arms, the 83 3/8-inch wingspan. This dude, you can see it on film. And man, I shouldn't say on film. He was a YouTube guy. He was like one of the only guys that didn't have film for me. But that's the thing, is like, he was one of those guys that he was like the last person I watched out of all the edge guys, because he was, he's a tweener. Some people think he's a defensive tackle for, I really feel like he's an edge at the NFL level. But I guess, maybe a 3-4 defensive end, you could consider a little interior. But he would be, he was someone that just kind of like was like, it just made sense. I don't know. When you watch him, man, he's relentless. Again, he has those long arms, but he has the bulk, the density, like you talk about, man, and he uses both very well, and has moves. I really liked what I saw from him, and I get why people are excited about him. And he's climbing up the consensus board. He came in 71 on the Athletics consensus board. So that round, that's a round 3 range. So he might be getting up there, Caleb.
Combine performance, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's true. Because again, though, those measurables are just ridiculous. But all right, last category here, slacker for the edge defenders, and we'll get out of here. Late night, talking ball, nothing better. Who do you have for your slacker, Caleb?
All right, for my slacker, I went with Jonah Ellis. And I know he's going to be like a speed rusher type guy in the NFL mostly. There's just, he's about 6'1.5" or 6'2", 240 pounds. It's just hard to find success in the league at that size doing anything other than lining up in like a wide 9 and just trying to run around like Orlando Brown or someone like that. But, I don't really see it. I know he had good production at college. I know that he's got that NFL bloodline. it's hard, man, to be able to go in there and win at that size. Guys just historically do not do it unless they're like ridiculous all-time greats, and I really don't think he's that guy. He wouldn't be a fit for the Chiefs anyway for really what they want to do, but I mean, I kind of just see him as being like at best like a career special teams guy.
Yeah, no, he was someone I wasn't very impressed with watching either. But I will say, the more I watched and the more I kind of tried to put into the context of, okay, he's a very young player. He's coming out after 3 years. You talk about his frame. Yeah, he's combine, I guess, was 6'2", 248. But he does have 10.5-inch hands. And I will say, I can see a path to him putting on some muscle, putting on some weight, being maybe like a 3-4 defensive end, and just kind of being, a relentless player. Cause I do feel like I saw some good, effort reps from him. But yeah, overall though, I was just really unimpressed with his kind of overall build. But I could say that about a lot of this draft class at the edge position, because that's how I feel about Adisa Isaac, the Penn State guy. But even to a lesser extent, because this guy, let me grab his measurables. This guy's not even an edge defender. I don't know why people are calling. He looks like an off-ball linebacker. He came in, he does come in at 6'4", 247. But man, he does not look 6'4" to me. He looks like a small dude on the field. Doesn't show any sort of power, in my opinion. Doesn't look like he's able to disengage from blocks once he's in contact. We don't see a lot of the 3-point stance. It's a lot of 2-point stance. And you saw him kind of be moved around inside over centers on pass downs. Like, hey, you're going to get pressure that way. Congratulations. He has, a couple steps of juice off the line, and that's about it. There's just no way that's going to become something, especially because I guess this is the main part. He's like one of the oldest prospects in the entire class. Like, he has no upside. This is a guy that just, there's just no way this guy's going to do anything. I feel very confident that, again, maybe he should just switch off ball linebacker, and then I'll evaluate him differently. Maybe we should do that.
I don't know. Maybe he'll be like an EOL kind of defender, like a Reggie Ragland type or someone like that, man. He's played with some really good defensive linemen also, or some good edge rushers throughout his career, and he just hasn't really been able to break through when the other teams are paying attention to those guys. Outside of like a blitz specialist or like just an EOL guy, I don't really see much of a path for him having like a sustainable, successful career.
Yeah, no, I know. That's kind of how I felt about Braylon Trice a little bit too, but I will say he got a little more build to him. And he has moves, man. He definitely has, as an experienced pass rusher, I feel like he could maybe find a role for himself, but he's kind of he's got short arms, small hands. And he takes on any of the other edge defenders. Because, again, I just really wasn't impressed with a lot of the class.
It gets a little weaker the further down you go, to where, like, you don't, like, want to have these conversations like people did last year about, like, a guy like Carl Brooks or something, into the later rounds. It's kind of like the first 2 rounds, you feel like you kind of are where you're at with it. And then after that, it does get into what the draft is, just rolling the dice sometimes.
And we love doing it. All right, Caleb. Well, we just did a marathon of free agency and draft preview, but I appreciate you joining us, or joining me late nights, making it happen. Appreciate the people listening, and make sure you hit us up on Twitter. Make sure you get your ratings and reviews in. And yeah, Caleb, we're out of here. So any final words for the people before we call it a night?
Next time we talk to you guys, Chiefs could look a lot different. We could be in panic mode. We could be in getting ready for 3-peat mode, but we will definitely be in draft mode, because free agency will hopefully and thankfully be coming to an end.
I know free agency will definitely disrupt the draft momentum, but man, it's once you get past it, man, it's just all draft heavy. Mock drafts out the wazoo. We'll be doing some of those on here once we kind of have a better idea of how they'll attack the draft. So, all right, people, thanks for listening. We will catch you next Friday, and just make sure you're tuned into the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network.